Since the beginning of the Republic, so from the Revolutionary War till about 18 months to 2 years ago, if you look at all the debt we'd issued to finance everything, so finance the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, all the infrastructures, the building of the highways, all the bridges, the space program, all that, all the government programs, the GI Bill. So you look at all the debt we've issued to finance everything since the beginning of the Republic, that amount of money was $12 trillion. And then in 18 months, we gave or lent from the Treasury and the central bank an equivalent amount, another $12 trillion to the banks. Now, what was that about? That $12 trillion refinanced out literally $12 trillion of paper, toxic paper, and derivatives that the financial sector issued during the 1990s, the last 15 years, literally to finance a leveraged buyout of the country and the planet. So think of it this way. I want to take you over. I issue everybody else $12 trillion of funny money. I take you over, and then I use your $12 trillion to pay them back. Mm-hmm. Okay, so literally we're watching a leveraged buyout of a country, and that's why I call it a financial coup d'etat. And that's what the bailouts were. One of the things that caused this tremendous ballooning of the power and economic resources of the financial sector was in the early 90s, we passed the Uruguay round for GATT, for the General Agreement on Tariffs, Trade and Tariffs. As a result, we changed the rules of how capital can flow around the world. And so suddenly, it's sort of Ross Perot's giant sucking sound. You pull tremendous amounts of capital out of this country, and you shift them abroad into other areas around the world. And one of the things, in fact, that happened, we do a lot to pull liquidity on those other areas so that you can buy in cheap. So you pump up the United States economy at the same time you flatten the economy in Asia or in Latin America, so you can buy it, so you take this money at a high price and buy in cheap at a low price. Okay, so they're shifting massive amounts of capital, and as they shift that capital, they totally change who's the owner. Okay, so when it leaves this country, $5 trillion of that money is in the United States government, so it's shared, it's in the commons, if you will. By the time it gets to Asia, the ownership is in the hands of small numbers of people. So you see this enormous capital shift. And one of the other things that happens as that capital shift occurs is we're watching the end of sovereign governments and the rise of corporations. We're literally changing the governance structure on planet Earth so that we're no longer governed by countries that coordinate with each other. We're literally governed by private corporations. In this process, and part of it is privatization, you're watching liabilities being shifted into sovereign governments and assets being shifted to corporations. Okay, so the corporations are getting the assets and the governments are getting the liabilities. So let's go back to the bailout. One of the ways to look at this is when we did that capital shift, we said in the beginning of the 90s, we can't afford the retirement of the boomers. We've promised them in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid more than we can afford to pay. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull all their retirement savings out. We're going to basically shift out all the money that's in the pension funds, the equivalent, okay? And what we're going to put back in their pension funds is phony baloney paper. And we're going to shift out the money that's in the Social Security fund and shift in phony baloney paper. So that once we've gotten all the money out, they're going to be sitting with a bunch of phony baloney paper and promises to each other. Okay? So it's really a way of leaving the American middle class high and dry and getting out while the getting is good.